she ignored this one habit, and it took her peace after 60. She was 67, always kind, always available, the kind of woman who never said no to anyone, not her family, not her neighbors, not even the strangers. But that one habit, that inability to say no, it slowly drained her. First her energy, then her peace, and finally, her health. Doctors say chronic stress is one of the most dangerous silent killers after 60. And if you're the kind of person who always puts others first, you might be on the same path without even knowing it. In this story, I'll show you how one small shift saved her life and how you can protect your own starting today. Her name was Margaret Harper, 67 years old, retired school teacher from a small town in Ohio. She had silver hair tied in a neat little bun, wore the same soft blue cardigan nearly every day, and always had extra cookies for the neighbors' kids. Everyone loved Margaret. She was the dependable one, the one you could call at 9 p.m. for a ride, the one who watched her grandkids every weekend, the one who never forgot a birthday or a casserole for the church bake sale. She had a way of smiling that made you feel like you mattered. But no one ever asked her how she was doing, and if they did, she'd smile and say, "Oh, I'm fine, just keeping busy." But she wasn't fine. There was a quiet heaviness in her eyes, not sadness exactly, but something deeper, like someone carrying the weight of everyone else's peace on her shoulders, while her own peace slowly crumbled underneath. Her daughter once joked, "Mom, you'd say yes even if you had a fever." And Margaret just laughed, because it was true. She had never said no, not to her family, not to her church, not even to the neighbor's grown son who needed help filling out job applications. It wasn't that people were trying to take advantage of her. They were just used to Margaret always saying yes. And she had trained herself to believe that kindness meant availability. That love meant never letting someone down, no matter what it cost her. But what it cost her was everything else: her energy, her rest, her health, and most of all, her peace. Pause here and ask yourself something. Does this sound familiar? Because if you're someone who always says yes, who's always giving, always helping, always staying silent, even when you're tired, then Margaret's story might just be your story too. And you need to hear what happened next. For Margaret, it started small, little things. She began forgetting where she'd placed her keys. Then she'd walk into the kitchen and stand there wondering why she came. She'd chalked it up to age, like most of us do. But inside, she was exhausted. Not the kind of tired that goes away with sleep, but the kind that lingers deep in your chest, in your back, in your mind. She'd wake up feeling like she hadn't rested at all. Still, she'd put on that same soft blue cardigan, pack the grandkids' lunch, and drive across town because her daughter had an early meeting again. Then she'd come back home, make a pot of tea, and check her phone. 4 new messages, all asking for something. "Mom, can you drop by the pharmacy?" "Margaret, can you volunteer at the bake sale next Thursday?" "Hey, sorry to bother you, but could you?" And she always said yes. Because saying no, well, that felt like letting people down, like she wasn't who they needed her to be. The worst part? No one knew. From the outside, she looked the same, but inside, Margaret felt empty, like she was pouring from a cup that had been dry for years. She stopped reading her mystery novels. She stopped listening to music. Even her garden, the one place she used to feel peace, sat untouched. Sometimes She'd sit on the edge of her bed late at night, staring at the floor, whispering to herself, "Why do I feel invisible in a life that I built for everyone else?" One Sunday during church, a woman stood up and shared how she'd taken a 2-week break just for herself to visit her sister in Oregon. Margaret smiled politely, but inside her chest tightened. She couldn't remember the last time she'd done something for no one else. And that's when it began. The silent storm, rising blood pressure, sharp headaches, anxiety before sleep, shortness of breath when rushing to meet other people's schedules. She didn't know it yet, but her body was raising the alarm. It was telling her, "You've ignored yourself for too long." Coming up next, we'll talk about what happened when Margaret's body finally gave out, and what the doctors discovered that changed everything. This part might just change how you live too. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon. Margaret was in the kitchen, slicing apples for her granddaughter's lunch. She felt a sharp pulse behind her eyes, like a balloon expanding too fast. Then her hands began to shake. Her knees buckled. She collapsed right there on the tile floor. Her daughter rushed over within minutes. By the time they reached the ER, Margaret's blood pressure was 183 over 100. Her heart was racing, her breathing shallow, her memory foggy. She wasn't having a stroke, but her body was screaming. Later that evening, the Dr. Karen Voss, a soft-spoken geriatric specialist, sat by her bed. She looked Margaret straight in the eyes and said, "Mrs. Harper, you're not just tired, you're in burnout. You've been running on empty, not just emotionally, but biologically. Your body can't distinguish emotional stress from physical danger anymore. And after 60, that's a problem." She explained that chronic stress triggers high cortisol levels, a hormone that, in small bursts, is helpful. But when it stays high, it becomes poison. It raises your blood pressure, weakens your immune system, and accelerates memory loss, Dr. Voss said. "We see it all the time in caregivers and in people like you, people who love deeply but forget to love themselves." Margaret was stunned. She'd never thought of herself as stressed. She wasn't yelling or panicking or losing control. But stress doesn't always look like chaos. Sometimes it looks like constantly saying yes when your body is begging you to say no. According to a 2023 study by the American Geriatric Society, over 64% of women over 60 experience symptoms of chronic stress without recognizing them, because they're so used to carrying emotional burdens for others. Dr. Voss told her gently, "You've spent your life giving. Now you need to learn how to protect what's left." That was Margaret's wake-up call, the moment when she realized kindness shouldn't cost you your health. Love shouldn't mean losing yourself. In the next part of her story, I'll show you the moment she turned it all around, and how learning to say just one small word changed everything. That word? You already know it, but you may have forgotten how to use it. Margaret went home from the hospital 2 days later with a prescription, a strict rest order, and a heart full of questions. She stood in her kitchen, the same kitchen where she had collapsed, and for the first time in years, it was quiet. No grandkids tugging at her apron, no neighbor ringing the bell, no urgent texts from her daughter. Just silence and a single note on the fridge. "Take care of yourself first, Dr. Voss." Margaret sat at the table, hands around a cup of tea she never had time to enjoy before. And she cried. Not because she was afraid, Not because she was angry. She cried because, for the first time in decades, she realized she didn't even know what taking care of herself meant. That night, Margaret did something she'd never done before. She turned her phone off at 9 p.m. Not on silent, not on vibrate. Office. And when her daughter texted at 9:13 asking, "Mom, can you come early tomorrow?" Margaret read it the next morning and replied with something simple, something powerful. "I won't be able to tomorrow. I need to rest." No apology, no explanation. And guess what? The world didn't fall apart. Her daughter figured it out. The sky didn't crash. No one hated her. No one called her selfish. It felt like peace. A strange, unfamiliar kind of peace. The kind that comes not from doing more, but from doing less on purpose. Margaret started small. She began blocking out quiet time in the mornings, 30 minutes just for herself. She stopped offering before being asked. She even began using a phrase Dr. Voss taught her. "Let me get back to you on that." Simple, respectful, powerful. It gave her room to breathe, to think, to decide what she wanted before committing to what everyone else needed. And slowly, her body responded. Her sleep improved. Her headaches faded. Her memory sharpened. Her smile came back. This time, not forced. She wasn't just living for others anymore. She was living for herself, too. And that changed everything. Up next, we'll walk through the doctor-back tips Margaret used to rebuild those boundaries, and how you can do the same, no matter your age, because it's never too late to learn how to protect your peace. Margaret always thought saying no made her difficult, selfish, inconsiderate. She was raised to believe that a good woman, a good mother, a good neighbor never turned anyone away. But after her wake-up call, she realized something important. Saying no isn't selfish. It's self-respect. That realization didn't come all at once. It came in moments, like the moment she told her granddaughter, "No, sweetie, I can't bake for the school this week. Grandma's taking a walk in the park instead." Or when she said to her church group, "I've loved volunteering, but I need to step back and focus on my health." No one got mad. Some even nodded with understanding, and one day, after declining a ride request from a friend's son for the first time, Margaret felt it. That strange, rare feeling of freedom. Not just time freedom, emotional freedom. She wasn't ignoring people. She wasn't rejecting love. She was simply making space for her own peace to exist too. One afternoon, while having tea with her friend Linda, another retired teacher who was also burnt out from caregiving, Margaret shared her story, and Linda said, "You mean we're allowed to do that? We're allowed to say no?" Margaret smiled. "We always were. We just forgot we could." You see, many seniors, especially women, fall into this quiet trap. They confuse boundaries with selfishness. But in truth, boundaries are a gift, not just to you, but to everyone around you. Because a rested, healthy, peaceful you is better for everyone. Margaret wasn't abandoning her people. She was finally showing up for them with energy, presence, and a real smile. Because she had finally shown up for herself. In the next part of this story, we'll go deeper into doctor-approved boundary strategies for seniors. Practical tips you can use starting this week to protect your mind, your body, and your peace. You've said yes to others for years. Now, it's time to say yes to you. Margaret didn't change overnight. It started with one small shift, a pause. Whenever someone asked her for help now, she didn't jump into a yes. the way she used to. Instead, she'd take a breath and say, "Let me check my calendar," or "Can I get back to you later today?" She wasn't trying to be clever or stall. She was finally giving herself something she'd never had before: space. A little space between the request and the answer. That pause made all the difference. She also began doing something she'd never considered important before: putting herself on the schedule. Tuesday mornings, a quiet walk by the lake. Fridays, tea and a puzzle at 10 a.m., no exceptions. She started blocking out these little windows of peace, like tiny appointments with herself. And just like she never skipped her doctor visits, she didn't skip these either. That simple act, putting her peace on the calendar, started changing her rhythm, and over time, it became her new normal. She used to feel the need to explain everything: why she couldn't help, why she wasn't available. She would write long, thoughtful messages, filled with guilt. But now, she'd reply simply, "I won't be able to this time, but I hope it all goes well." No apologies, no paragraphs, just a clear, kind response that respected both herself and the other person. To keep herself grounded, she stuck tiny notes around the house. One on the fridge said, "Is this yes costing your peace?" Another on the bathroom mirror read, "Rest is not lazy, it's necessary." These weren't affirmations. They were reminders, signposts to keep her on the path she was finally walking. And maybe most powerful of all, she started practicing all this with someone she trusted, her friend Linda. Linda would call and say, "Want to volunteer next Friday?" And Margaret would take a breath and say, "Not this time." And Linda would laugh and say, "Look at you, learning to say no." They'd giggle, but both knew it wasn't a joke. It was growth. None of this was dramatic. There were no big speeches, no slammed doors, just quiet choices, stacked day after day. And in those quiet choices, Margaret finally found something she hadn't felt in years: her own voice. If there's one thing Margaret learned, one truth she earned through fatigue, fear, and finally freedom, it's this: peace doesn't arrive. It's not a gift. It's a responsibility. No one will give you peace, not your kids, not your community, not even the people who love you the most, because they're used to the version of you that's always said yes, the one that gives and gives and gives even when you're empty. But you are the only one who can draw the line. You are the only one who can say, "I matter too." Maybe, like Margaret, you've forgotten what quiet feels like. Maybe you become so wrapped up in caring for others that you don't even remember what caring for yourself looks like anymore. And maybe, just maybe, you're a little scared of what will happen when you finally say no. Let me tell you something. Saying no isn't the end of your relationships. It's the beginning of your real ones. Because the people who love you, truly love you, will respect your boundaries. They will adjust. They will still be there. And most importantly, you will still be there. Present, healthy, calm, and whole. Before we end, I want to leave you with this quiet question. When was the last time you said yes to yourself? Not out of guilt, not out of fear, but out of love. Margaret did it at 67. And if she could start then, so can you. Thank you for spending this time with me today. If Margaret's story touched something inside you, if you saw yourself in her journey, I hope you'll consider subscribing to this channel, not for numbers, but because stories like this, stories about real healing, real habits, and real peace, deserve to keep being told you're not alone and your peace is waiting.